It's been more than a year since the start of the Me Too movement, which began when the New York Times published its investigation into Harvey Weinstein. Since then, Bloomberg reports at least 425 prominent people have been publicly accused of sexual misconduct.
Louis C.K. is admitting the 5 women accusing him of sexual misconduct were telling the truth.
A number of women have claimed that when harassed or assaulted them, one case led to a $7.5 million settlement.
A high-ranking ally of the Me Too movement and critic of President Trump is resigning as New York State Attorney General because of allegations that he physically and emotionally abused 4 romantic partners.
There's this intrinsic link between the Me Too movement and Me Too coverage. The latter helped launch the former, while the former magnified news outlets' coverage of sexual misconduct. The Women's Media Center compared the content of major news outlets from May 2017 to August 2018 and found that the number of articles about sexual assault had risen by around 30%. In a statement, one of the co-authors of the report said, "The media has a critical role to play in helping shift our culture by credibly presenting accusations, doing its own investigations, and explaining the context in which an alleged attack occurred. It is beyond time that the media treat women survivors with the respect they deserve."
Hands down, victim blaming is at the center of most reporting. Or to put it another way, most reporting is done from a perpetrator's perspective. And that continues to be the case that I see in both local reporting on stories that may not be as mainstream, that may not be as high profile nationally, and also in cases and stories that are high profile cases.
Claudia Garcia-Rojas developed a media toolkit on reporting on rape and sexual violence. It helps guide news outlets, including Newsy, on the difficulties of reporting on the sensitive topics. That includes avoiding sensationalism and victim blaming, issues that aren't new to the coverage of sexual violence.
We were seeing patterns in terms of how those stories were being reported, and those patterns pointed to a lot of victim blaming, a lack of context, a lack of historical and cultural interpretations in the story, not stories that were not coming from a trauma-informed perspective, and also stories that were very much treating survivors as a monolith.
Those patterns in reporting reflect and contribute to what experts call rape culture, and that could have a serious impact on real-world behavior. A study published in the Quarterly Journal of Political Science analyzed more than 300,000 rape-related news stories published by 279 U.S. newspapers between 2000 and 2013. Just 3% of the articles analyzed contained components of rape culture, but in the areas where those articles were published, the researchers say police received more frequent reports of rape and made fewer arrests in response. 5 years after the end of that sample, and 6 years after the Reporting on Rape and Sexual Violence Toolkit was published, Garcia-Rojas says conversations surrounding the topics have changed. And because of that, she says she's working on updating her guide.
I'm going to expand the language section, develop a much more user-friendly statistics section, revise our good reporting, bad reporting analysis, and offer a more trauma-informed framework for people who are writing on these issues.
The Media Toolkit stresses that one of the most important aspects of good, constructive, and informative reporting is context, making sure readers or viewers understand the patterns and broader social concerns of sexual violence.
It's only really now that this moment of cultural reckoning has come about that I think so many of us are thinking about our own experiences and our own sexual encounters. And it's those kind of conversations, most of which have been taking place behind closed doors between myself and my friends, that I thought, it's a good time to explore what consent really means.
That's Vice News correspondent Isabel Young. Her special report, Consent, goes into some of the most nuanced but misunderstood aspects of sexual violence: consent and accountability. Her team spent around 6 months researching the topic before it actually started filming.
I felt like there was a huge amount of misunderstanding around the topic of consent. I also felt like I wanted to bridge that, and I wanted to understand why there was so much misunderstanding. I knew I wanted to explore also what accountability looks like and how we can kind of bridge these differences and have a more nuanced conversation about it. I definitely didn't really know enough about it, really, in hindsight.
One of the things that consent did was take the headlines of the Me Too movement, most notably the allegations surrounding actor Aziz Ansari, and connect them to the personal struggles and misunderstandings of consent that normal, everyday people face. In response to the documentary, Young said male viewers reached out to her, telling her that the report made them reassess and reevaluate their own sexual experiences.
I mean, I think that the Me Too movement as a whole has kind of entered this new chapter and just continues to evolve and get bigger and bigger. I think that, I hope that it will continue to gain momentum. But I also hope that these conversations move beyond these very black and white, very noisy, accusatory debates, and that we are able to kind of approach things with some humanity, and that we can also question our own roles in all of this. I think that we as media have a responsibility to do that in order to kind of make sure that this movement continues in a responsible manner.